I'm Kevin Davis, and this is the Catholic Family Podcast. And I'm very happy to be joined by, well, a couple of other uh, podcasters. Are you guys podcasters? Filmmakers. Let's call them filmmakers. And these guys, they've really jumped on the scene recently, at least that I've caught. I mean, maybe they maybe have been around for a while. I guess we'll find that out here in a minute. But I've caught them recently. They really have jumped out to me with some of their music videos, and they're awesome. The music videos are absolutely beautiful, and it's something we were talking about here shortly before recording here. That just how important it is to show the beauty of our faith and the beauty of our, you know, who we are, what we live. I mean, our faith is our life, right? And so to show that and to really show what we believe and who we are, that's what we're all about here at Catholic Family Podcast. And that's what they're about here, Andrew and Eliza with Crusader Filmworks. And again, they're going to kind of tell us about themselves. And guys, I guess the best place to start is kind of to tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll get about what you do, and well, your future projects and your current projects. We want to show a couple of your music videos to hope people will go over there and check them out because they're awesome, they're beautiful. So I guess I'll just throw it to you guys. I mean, who are you? I guess how did you meet? Where do you come from? And yeah, we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, thank you, Kevin, for having us on. I have been greatly helped by your content that you make, and we talk about often, like the interviews that you conduct helped, I believe, for both of us, and people that we know in our journey through the faith. I guess we could start on how we met. Do you want to add a little bit to that? I'll just say that going through my faith, I was born and raised in the SSPX, and then eventually I ended up falling away. When I came back to the faith, that's when I fully took the sedevacantist position. And then through the last almost 2 years, I've been greatly urged to take the talents that I used to use, for myself, to make other short films, to really take that and glorify God with those talents. And like we talked about a little bit before the podcast, being a part of that mystical body and being a part of the art, side of it to bring glory to God is something that we don't see very often. And I want to be able to be a part of that, even if it's a little bit, even if it's literally just to help the faithful, put a smile on their face, and then they are able to regain a little bit of strength through that. But that's really I think both of our missions between both of our talents. Yeah. But you want
to before we get to Elijah, I just want to comment real quick, and it's a great point about the art side of it. And I think that nowadays we kind of almost shrug at it or roll our eyes like, oh yeah, art, Catholic. Come on, think of Michelangelo, think of Caravaggio, these things that truly people would walk into a church and be inspired and be, left in awe and in for God, right? I mean, it wasn't just like, oh, that's a nice piece of art. It was, wow, that's incredible. And that's the scene of the crucifixion, or that's the martyrdom of St. Peter. And, these things that really brought the faith to life and brought these stories that, of course, the true stories of our faith, brought them to life. And that's exactly the point, right? That art can be a lot more, right? It really can lead people to God. I mean, lead us, not just from nothing to God, but also from being Catholics and, being cradle Catholics to actually having true faith. So it's a really good point. And I'm totally with you. And it's something we need to not take lightly, I think. So Eliza, I'd love to know who you are.
So, I actually grew up Protestant. So I was born and raised in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, the conservative wing of the Lutheran Church. So when I was 15, we moved from my hometown to Georgia. And that's when we couldn't find a church. And to make a very long story short, we went from Lutheran to Anglican, back to Lutheran, back to Anglican, closer and closer and closer, you could say, until finally I came into the Novus Ordo Church because of the Latin Mass, actually, because we were going to that. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, after the Novus Ordo Church, I really started leaning towards Latin Mass only. I started to drive down to the SSPX all the way in Florida. I went that route. And then this is really I'm summarizing a lot. But long story short, I went through Most Holy Trinity. At the time, Bishop Sanborn was still in Florida. This was almost 3 years ago now. So I came in to the true church through Most Holy Trinity, and then went back up to Georgia, having been confirmed and, all the conditional sacraments I needed, and doing the whole renunciation of my former heresy and everything, like before the altar, all the whole 9 yards. It was really, really good.
Wow.
Me and my brother and mom and dad, we all
Wow.
came in together. So that was a great blessing. And so I definitely, I've always gone to church my whole life, but not the right ones until recently. So we actually met at the YAG. So
Jaggers. Okay. Cool.
and it was my first one and his first one and our only one. So it was kind of a
Yeah.
miraculous, like, I didn't ever expect to be able to go. I was living at the time on my parents' farm, and there was just a lot of work to do. I never even thought it was an option to leave for a weekend. But my brother was like, "Well, I want to go." So we just 10-hour drive up to Cincinnati, and somehow he was there too, because
Yeah.
the army sent him to Fort Knox, and
Yeah.
again, it was just miraculous because we're in El Paso right now.
Hmm.
He was normally in Fort Bliss, and then he got sent to Fort Knox, which is a couple hours away from Cincinnati, and his
Yes.
family lives in Cincinnati, so he would go back up and down.
Hmm.
And he said, go to the YAG," and he did, and sure enough, so
Yeah.
it's kind of funny how it all worked out,
Wow.
but yeah.
Well, that's amazing, and that's boy, talk about God's providence. That really is incredible. And shout out to the YAG. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone knows I'm a big supporter of the YAG. Though Colleen, she's an old married lady now. So I don't know if she's gonna be coming on any more podcasts anytime soon. But no, we
Oh,
greatly appreciate Colleen and all she's done, and everyone else who works on the YAG, and Father McKenna, of course,
yes.
big
He
fan
he
of the
married
show.
he married
Awesome.
us. Yeah,
Well,
at
I
St.
Yeah.
Grace.
it's a funny thing. It's like, can you be like a buddy with a priest? I mean, I know you can't, but
Not
and
really.
I've never even met him, but I feel like he's my buddy. And Father McKenna, I mean that with all due respect. He's the best. I really love him so much.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing. Again, but it's actually not even the topic, but just your whole conversion is pretty incredible. But I guess it really strikes me when I hear these stories of conversion of people who found their way to the truth. And what always strikes me is that, of course, first of all, it has to be through God's providence, but there has to be a search for the truth. There has to be an
Yeah.
actual desire for that, right? Because if you're not actually desiring it, you're not going from Lutheran to Novus Ordo to Catholic, because that won't happen if you're not actually open for grace and for God's truth. And so I guess I just asked you that again before we get into the whole musical side of it. I mean, how was that with your family? I mean, were you guys just kind of open to, hey, we want to do what's right, and then you just kind of found it?
To be honest, I would have to give all the credit to my parents and brother and older sister, and I'm the youngest, and so I
Hmm.
really have to give all the credit to them because when I was young, I went to church, I believed in God, but I was not that educated compared to them. My parents have been truth seekers from the start. It's really them because they started out, well, my mother was actually born into the true church and baptized in 1963 before the
Hmm.
changes.
Wow.
But uh, she was not raised in the faith because her parents did not do it properly. I mean, they didn't raise her in the faith. So, she ended up going to a Protestant church with her neighbors. She became a Baptist eventually. My dad grew up Episcopalian, sort of nominally in Boston, and or in that area for a while, and then they moved. But he was born into the Episcopalian church, and then he became a Baptist. They met at a Baptist Bible college of all
Hmm.
places.
Wow.
And so, they were the truth seekers. They found the Lutheran Church as much closer than Baptist. I suppose you could
Hmm.
say everything was a step in
Hmm.
the right direction, because they cared, and when they found a problem, they sought the truth elsewhere. And so they found the Lutheran Church, and we had a lot of Catholic truths in our Lutheran Church, kind of ironically. Obviously, a lot of issues too, but a lot of Catholic truths still maintained in it. Um, and then with a whole lot of heresy added. But they are the ones that were seeking. And I was just a child that went to whatever church they switched to. So that's kind of how it was when I was 15. Even when I was 15, when we moved, I was like, okay, well, we're Anglican now. I got confirmed as an Anglican. And then they said, well, there's problems in this church. Let's go to another one. So I just followed and followed and followed. And then I didn't really get into the truth seeking myself. I was just following them until I became an actual Catholic. And that was only due to the rosary. My sister
Hmm.
converted first, gave me a rosary, said, pray it every day. I said, I don't even know how to do this. What are you talking about? And she said, I'll teach you. Basically, she prayed through it with me once. And I said, okay, all right, I kind of get this, sort of. She said, prayed every day. I said, what? I can't do that. I'm still Anglican at the time. I'm still like Anglican, and I'm going to the Cathedral Latin Mass, the kind of indult Latin Mass, because it's beautiful. Because I said to everyone, I said, well, I'm going to go to the beautiful cathedral because it's beautiful. We've run out of churches at this point, so I'm just going to go there. I'm not Catholic, but I'm just going there. So it was kind of ridiculous how it all happened. But then Our Lady used that for good, because my sister was brought into the Novus Ordo first. She gave me the rosary. She told me to pray it. But it was literally a miracle of grace, because at that point I was too busy and stuck up to do things like that. It was Mary that said, when Amara, my sister, said pray it every day, the Virgin Mary forced me to do it. And I did. And by the grace of God, I prayed it. And then I said, I need to go to confession. I need to become Catholic. And I did. Or to what I thought was Catholic. And at that point, it was through the Novus Ordo. And then after that point, I started really looking. I started really digging in and learning the faith, learning as much as I could, but getting conflicting information from the non-church versus the old documents I was reading, old catechisms I was reading from the true church. Then just things weren't adding up, and I started to get more confused, but also still said, well, we've got to figure this out. And I would listen to all sorts of priests, bishops, talks, a million talks. And then I got a spiritual director in the Novus Ordo. I discerned religious life. I did everything that I could in that church. And then I eventually said, well, I got to go to the SSPX, because at least they care. You know, at least they're somewhat consistent. At least you can talk to people in the parking lot and not get into a fight with them because you're too conservative and they're not. And, so that's where it really started. And then my brother, he's the first one to look into the sedative conscious position. He was the first one to go to a CMRI. And at first I was the one freaking out, saying, no, that's probably invalid. You can't go there. And we talked on the phone a lot, and we were praying the whole process. I mean, I was on my knees praying the rosary, saying, Mary, please don't let me go astray. Like, put me where I'm supposed to be. And it was very painful, because not my whole family. It wasn't my whole family. It was my brother and me first. Well, my brother first, then me, then my mom and dad. Because they've been seeking the truth for so long, it wasn't that hard of a sell. When we said there's no Pope, they said, well, we couldn't stand him anyway. So it was like, we're kind of happy. It was a relief, but at the same time very painful, because we didn't have a mass nearby. So a long journey, but I have to give all the credit to my parents and brother and sister. And then when I started to seek the truth, it was just the channels of grace that had already been pouring down. But yes, you're definitely right. You do have to seek, and you will find. And my parents, I think, are a really good example of that, coming from Baptist all the way to traditional Catholic. That's quite a journey.
I want to add that, speaking of the truth and wanting to find the truth, when I met Eliza and I met her family, they are probably the most truth seekers that I ever met in my life. Like, they are really about the truth, which is really refreshing. Because I've been in the military, and during that time, that's also when I wasn't really practicing my faith. And then when I was stationed at Fort Knox temporarily, we talk about God smacking me in the face and bringing me back. And I was and that's when I had a similar, position that she did, where I called my brother. I know he was only 2.5 hours away, and the first thing I said to him was you were right about all this stuff, and I need to go to confession again. By the grace of God, I had already been baptized correctly, confirmed correctly through the SSPX. So it wasn't as getting back into the faith wasn't difficult, but he really was the one that guided me through that whole process. And he already found that sedative conscious position. I heard a little bit about it. He explained it, made perfect sense to me. And ever since then, God has changed my life completely, because then it was at that YAG that year where I met Eliza, and Father McKenna was assisting me on previously during my time in the military, the vaccine mandate happened. And I was privileged to be able to get in touch with Father McKenna and Bishop Dolan and get letters to help me fight that mandate. So I was never able to thank Bishop Dolan in person. I pray I can thank him in heaven. But for Father McKenna, I was able to thank him in person. I was like, thank you for writing that letter. It really greatly helped me during those trying times. And eventually he was the one who married us. Now, that was a great privilege to have that much connection with Father McKenna. I know he's on your show quite often. And it's always amazing to hear that he was on talking about how blessed their county sheriff is.
Oh, yes.
Talking about how that was one of the reasons why they were able to stay open during during those
shutdowns,
times,
yeah.
was because their sheriff was like, I'm not
The
I'm
sheriff
not
was
gonna help.
just
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah. I wish
Right.
we all had a sheriff like that.
I know.
I hear
Yeah.
you. Well,
Yeah,
it's amazing though. What really it really always comes back to the rosary too. Those are the two things. I mean, it really is the search, actually is having to search for truth. Like actually, like you want to find the truth, and I see a lot of people here in Germany too who come to it because of really through politics too. It's actually pretty interesting. Through I see it in France too. These guys who come to it because they have to find truth in politics, and then they determine there is no truth in politics, right? There is none. The world doesn't offer us any truth, and then I think they search and search and search, and they find the truth. But Our Lady through the Rosary, it's every story. I'm telling you, it's just incredible. I'm gonna have to go back through all of these conversion stories and look it up and get these different quotes from it, because it really is incredible. It's always the Rosary. I just kind of picture it as Our Lady with the lasso. Can I
Yes.
yeah,
gotcha, and then you're pulled in kind of, because I think that's really how it is. I mean, she's incredible. And it
yeah,
really is, but it shows you too. I mean, the blessings you get from that, and if you're if you're struggling, if you're looking for your faith, anybody who is in the Novus Ordo, SSPX, Lutherans, I mean, pray the Rosary, pray
Yes.
the Rosary, and search for truth. I know we do shows, and we talked about this again before the show, that we do shows with Novus Ordo Watch. I mean, it sounds like we're bashing the people in the SSPX, and that's not it. We're the positions we think, okay, these are kind of silly, and maybe it sounds kind of harsh, but no, everyone has to go through their own steps.
Right.
I mean, even people who were born into sedevacantism, I still had to go through my own struggles of accepting
absolutely.
it as my own faith, right? I mean, Andrew, I think you did too. I mean, you're SSPX, but I mean, you have to go through the struggles and accept, hey, okay, yeah, this is what I believe, not just what my parents believe. This is what I believe,
Yes.
and it is hard, and it's hard for anybody, and everyone goes through those different steps, and it's beautiful to hear, and it really is. Every time I hear it, it's just like, oh, okay. I'm going to predict it next time. I'm going to do another show. I'm going to say, okay, I bet you guys wanted the truth and you prayed the Rosary, and
Yep.
there you go. That's kind of ends up how it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's awesome, and the YAG. I guess the YAG is the third little piece there to throw
Yeah.
in there. But
Yeah.
and so I guess I would ask you guys. So Andrew, maybe I'll ask you first. What is your piece in the media side? You said you made short films before. Was that before you met Eliza? Were you doing that just as a hobby, or how did that come about?
Yeah. So growing up, um, part of my interest growing up was just watching movies. It was like an escapism for myself, diving into movies, analyzing the characters, analyzing the story, the message of the movie. Whenever me and my dad went to go see a movie, he would ask me, "What do you think the moral of the message was? What do you think the message was? Was it good? Was it bad?" So there was always that morality that was placed within watching movies and storytelling. So I was fascinated with that from the moment. I can't remember the first time I watched a movie, but from that moment, I was hooked within the filmmaking world. Um, that's not always a good thing because it became too much of a distraction from the faith, which I think ultimately was part of my demise with the faith itself, because I should have been learning the faith alongside of learning how to make short films too. But nonetheless, I ended up learning how to make stop motions. I took like action figures and Legos and just took like thousands of photos and made them move and do different things. I was like, wow, this is
Sure.
crazy. I'm making a movie now. So it became watching them to actually, it's way more fulfilling for me to make them. I think any artist can say that. Their first fascination, like let's say you have a painter and he just sees a painting, he's moved by it. Eventually, he learns how to paint, and he's like, that's way more fulfilling to make it than to indulge in it, because you're trying to give something to people. And I think that's probably the same for Eliza with her music. But
Yeah.
yeah, when I went through and started learning how to make stop motions, eventually I wanted to get into the live action role. So I would make fan films. I made a fan film of Inception, and there's some really cringy ones too. Like I, I made a fan film of like Sherlock Holmes,
Oh, that was
where it
funny.
was maybe I'll say the top line
How
with
old
it.
are you? Well, tell him how old you were so
I
he
was
knows.
maybe like
He was a
13,
kid. We're
14.
talking about a
Yeah.
kid.
Got it.
And I loved it though. I was
Yeah.
like, this is my episode 1. Here's episode 2. Like here's the pre-production. Like I learned all the terms, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna write the screenplay. Then we're gonna find the location, which is the backyard.
Yeah.
It's like we're gonna do film scouting. We're gonna find it. It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
it's in the backyard, so we're gonna go film over there.
Yeah.
And my dad, my brother, they all helped out. My sister, like they were all part of it,
Yeah.
part of the production. So then eventually, as I kept making them, I started to get better at it, to the point where, I was in touch with some people who were, part of film schools, and they're like, this is better content than what I see in the film school. And I'm like, okay.
Sure.
And then that was the whole thing of like, okay, so let me see what I can do to continue to make these short films. And then I dived into a lot of superhero stuff. I made a lot of superhero, like, fan films, short films, that kind of stuff. And it taught me so much with the cinematography, the soundtrack, the acting. How do I direct? How do I capture like a really good shot, cinematography, and how do I make it movie like? How do I make it like what I see on the big screen? So that's really my way of getting into it. Just self taught. I watch a lot of Film Riot. They teach people how to make movies. They call it like the there's no film school you need to go to. You can just watch our content. We can teach you how to make this stuff. So I started doing that, made a bunch of short films, did a lot of superhero stuff, and then eventually, as I came back to the faith, I realized like none of that stuff I made is glorifying to God ultimately. I really had to go through some tough times, a lot of conversations with her where I was like, is any of this really redeemable? Can I make it? It's not like it was like really filthy or, vulgar, most of the stuff I made. It was just very secular.
Mhm.
So eventually that went away. And then I really felt a calling to devote those talents to God, who rightfully gave me that. So it belongs to him. And I was like, okay, let me make some stuff. So when I was at Fort Knox, I felt a calling to start producing even just short form, very like YouTube short kind of content.
Mhm.
And that's when the Crusader Runner account started, which is now called Crusader Filmworks. And I started making videos about the faith, just little short ones. Even some of them were just biblical text with like some shot I took, like try to make it as good looking as I can, and then put it out there.
Mhm.
Eventually, when me and Eliza got married, after that is when we started to think about, well, we should really put together, like full productions. And she already recorded a lot of stuff, like the Our Father in Aramaic
Mhm.
Yeah, I did that
was,
like 2 years ago,
yeah.
or
Mhm. Okay.
maybe 3 years ago.
And then
Yeah.
she always really liked that Cristero song.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
loved it. I listened to it all the time. Yeah.
yeah, so when we really started to think about the talents and how God brought us together, she really possessed all of the musical talents, and I was able to provide the visual art talent. I'm like, let's
Mhm.
let's make these music videos. Let's
Yeah.
make it together. So when she recorded the Cristero song, uh,
El
I was at
Martes, yeah.
El Martes. I was
Mhm.
at work, came back. She's like, I'm done. Listen to it. She tweaked it 1,000 times.
Oh, more than 1,000.
Yeah. And then we're like, okay,
Infinity.
like let's do this because we are in El Paso. This is
Yes,
the
the
perfect
location was
location. Yeah.
providential. The location really was providential.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really believe that God really blessed that particular video. I mean, I don't think I've even when I made it, I was like, I've never made something this good before. This high quality. This is like beautiful. You think if you were like put in the For Greater Glory Blu-ray and then like one of the special features was that music video, it would fit.
Yeah.
And I'm so like honored to be a part of that because again, bringing light the martyrdom, bringing to light those stories that often people don't know about. A lot of people who are secular and even a lot of Catholics sometimes don't know these stories. I know I had to be introduced to it. So
Well, what I love about it too, I mean, I love everything about that song. We'll show that in a minute. We'll play a part of it so everyone can hear it. But I love the language. It's something you just don't hear, right? You don't hear this honest language of like, yep, I'm gonna go. They're gonna kill me tomorrow, and this is
Yeah.
why. And I
yeah,
just love it. There was something so striking about it because it
yeah,
has nothing to do with our world now, right? It's like a different world. It's a different. It's so different. Like our time is like, oh, you just imagine everything would be softer. Oh, we don't want to talk. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, they're gonna shoot me on Tuesday because
yeah,
because I believed in Jesus Christ, and it's like, whoa,
yeah,
boy, that's pretty strong, but in a good way. It really does. It strikes you and like that's what we had, and that's what these men and women had in Mexico. Even though they were being put to death, it makes you question: did they still have it better? And I know it's a tough question, and I'm not saying necessarily in many ways. Obviously, not physically. No, many of them were tortured and killed, of course. But whew, it's an interesting concept that maybe they did have it better. They at least had the concept of why they're here. Why are we here? And they were here for Jesus Christ, and they were willing to die for it. That's a pretty
Yeah.
incredible thing, and that's something that we, boy, talk about a lesson for us. And well, we'll get to that. I'm going to show that video real quick, but Eliza, then I'll ask you. It's fascinating, Andrew. Andrew, you have a similar way as me, I suppose. Very different. I'm not any way graphically talented at all. I mean, like I could probably put together stick figures and make it look kind of interesting. But I went to again. I think I told you guys before the show. I did. I was a sports podcaster, and I was got up not big, but I mean I was enough that it was people were listening to me. And I remember sitting there one time and I was looking at the views. I looked at the views one day and it's like, oh, I got, I don't know, a couple thousand views in a day. And it's like, okay, that's pretty cool. Then the next day, 0. because nobody listens to sports after a day. It's done. Like
Yeah.
you have sports talk and it's one day people listen and then it's gone forever. Forever. No one will ever again listen to that podcast. And it really struck me. It's like, wow, I'm pretty good at this and I like it. I still love sports, but nobody cares. It's gone. And it really struck me as like, okay, I want to do something that actually matters, and that's part of why I started this. But anyway, it really it's fascinating that I think I feel similar to you, Andrew. But Eliza, so how did you train, or is it just kind of God given talent?
Well,
Or
it's
both.
definitely both. Yes. So I was definitely blessed with a musical gift that I didn't know I had until an opera singer at my Lutheran church told my parents, "She has a gift, you need to get her into lessons, piano lessons."
Cool.
And when I heard him say that, I was scared. I don't know why. It scared me. I said, "What does that mean? Like, I'm scared. What's going on?" It actually frightened me. Now I wanted to do piano lessons. Like I would go. What happened was I would go over to my friend's house when I was a child. We're talking second, third grade. I'd go over to my friend's house. She had a beautiful baby grand piano. She was getting piano lessons all the time. And I didn't have piano lessons, but my brother had him as a child and then stopped and then, picked up the trumpet in school. So we were always involved with music, but I was little at that point. I wasn't in the age of joining band yet. We went to public school, of course. So, but I would go to my friend's house and I would listen to her play a little bit and then I would say, I want to learn that. And I would just copy what she did. And I'd figure it out. We'd sit there for like half an hour and all I wanted to do was sit at her piano and figure it out and play it. And I got to the point where I was playing, easy versions of like Beethoven pieces and things like that, like the easy child versions in her books, not knowing how to read a thing. I mean, if I looked at that, it'd be hieroglyphs to me. But I would just look at the piano and figure it out.
Mhm.
And she would play and I would copy. And so when I would go to the church, because we didn't have a piano, every time I went to church, I went downstairs to the basement. I played that piano all the time. Because what happened was we had an electric piano, and my parents, when my brother quit piano lessons, I don't remember how old he was, but they donated it to the Lutheran church. So the one they used for the choir, to rehearse with, was our electric piano. So we didn't have it at home anymore. So I would go to the church basement and I would just play all the time on that thing every Sunday. And the opera singer I mentioned before, great him and his wife, very good musicians. Classically trained operatic baritone and soprano. They were incredible, but they would just like watch me, and I guess they just noticed. And a musician can notice another one very easily. And now that I'm one, I know I can pick them out. Like a little child that comes to me for a lesson for the first time, I'll know instantly. Yes, they
Mhm.
they are going to stick with it. And another one, they're not really meant for this. They might want to do it as a hobby, but they're probably going to fall off. You can always see. Um, but so he scoped me out and told my parents, because they were friends with my parents, and my parents got me into piano lessons. And so my piano lessons, though, unfortunately, it was with a family friend, but I did not get a good foundation at all in reading music. It
Mhm.
was awful. I was so bad at it. But the problem was because I was addicted to learning by ear. So I just learned it by ear way faster than I could read it. And that really crippled me with music reading because I could play fast. I could play Mozart, Alla Turca, whatever it was. But I could not look at that music for the life of me and learn a new piece. It would take me like months to even get 2 pages down. So I was a little crippled musically. But when I got into, I would say, okay, 6th grade, that's when you join band if you're going to join band. So I joined band and I asked to play trumpet, and I sent in the slip, and the teacher sent back the slip and said, "You're going to play flute." I said, "But I want to do trumpet." "Well, they have enough trumpets. You're playing flute." Okay. Great. My parents got me like a whatever, $50, $40 flute from a yard sale, and I started figuring it out before I went to school really badly. got to school, got a basic understanding of it, and then through middle school really started to become one of the ones that really cared. You can always tell in band too. The one that has a good sound after a year and the one that just didn't even get anywhere past the first, level. So I in school was where I learned how to read music and I really learned my instrument, my flute instrument. And I was always singing hymns in church since I was a little child. So singing was always there, but never ever training. Never got trained in singing until a few years ago, and maybe 3 or 4 lessons. That's it. Never had formal musical training on
Wow.
voice, except for just really a handful of lessons. But so I got into flute, and then in I think 8th grade or 7th grade, I wanted to start violin because my piano teacher also played violin as a secondary. So she said, "Okay, I'll teach you violin." So I started those a little bit, but then we moved not even 2 years after that, and I didn't really have time to practice. So I'm way more self-taught on violin. In fact, I don't say that I'm a classical violinist at all, because I can't play like them. But I'm a fiddler and I'm a folk violinist. So I definitely identify as a fiddler. I'm a classically trained flutist now because I did go to college. I got a degree in flute performance. So I got all
Mhm.
my training there when I was still, Lutheran and Anglican. And unfortunately, a lot of other propaganda garbage that college gives you that going back, I really would have preferred to just skip all that and just only do music, but you know how it is. But anyway, so I did get formal training in flute. I have a degree in classical flute. So I also picked up guitar in high school, playing terrible rock music, absolutely horrible, very bad. So I actually have a similar story to Andrew where, a lot of the music I played at first was not good, not glorifying to God. It was not, I was also like I was like doing a lot of ensemble groups in college, different swing and jazz bands, things like that. But I eventually, when I converted, I realized, okay, I play like 7 instruments now, the mandolin, voice, and all that. I just added one after another after another. I play all these instruments. I'm used to playing not very good music, just objectively speaking. They're not morally sound. A lot of it was
Mhm.
not. So I kind of went through this huge purge. I mean, over the course of a few years, I did a lot of study and I studied, okay, where do these rhythms come from? Where does this come from? Where is this, all of everything you could possibly. I mean, I watched every documentary, I read so many books on it, on music and the power of music and what is supposed to be used for and the power that it has to distort the image of God really more or less in people because it either brings you up or down. There's really no middle ground with music. It brings you up or it brings you down. And so once I learned that, and the power of frequencies particularly, all of these things, like my head is just full of just information. I said, okay, there's too much. So I needed to do what I call like a huge purge. And it basically my period of time in the desert, so to speak. I stopped playing a lot. I didn't practice a lot on really any instrument. I listened only to Gregorian chant and sacred music, sacred polyphony for so long because I said, I just need to cleanse my palate. I need to get rid of the attachments to all these types of music because they're making it impossible for me to actually judge them objectively.
Mhm.
So I purged myself of that. Um, and I with a lot of prayer and reflection over many, I'd say a couple years, I kind of came back to playing and teaching. And um, I teach classical music and I teach a lot of folk music. I do not teach rock music. I don't teach a lot of genres. And I'm very particular about what when a student comes to me and wants to play this song, I'm like, okay, are all the lyrics moral? If they're
Mhm.
not, if we can't change any and it doesn't work, it's out. I
Mhm.
can't take part in that. So I went through a huge it was wild, honestly, looking back. But so with teaching, I still teach. I have a few students here in El Paso, and I still have some virtual students from Georgia. But I could never really teach in a school because I there's so much I won't play, and I
Mhm.
don't want to condone because I know too. It's like once you know too much, it's like with us now we can't walk into a Novus Ordo, bless ourselves with the non-holy water, kneel down and pray as if everything's fine. I kind of have the same mentality with a lot of music now. I'm like, "Oh, I know too much. I
Yeah.
can't do that. I can't play that." And so, I created a website. My teaching studio is called Old School Music and Old School Music Studio. And the whole point of it is old school, as in we're talking all the way back to classical, sacred, everything that we used to do, plus all the good and wholesome folk music that is good and wholesome to take part in. Because there are some types of folk music that are not wholesome. I don't care how old they are. They're not, a lot of them are ancient and ritualistic drumming patterns. You're talking about, you don't want to do, a voodoo drum ritual is folk music, right? Are we going to do that? No. That is so bad that, the whole point of it is to summon spirits. Like, you can't do that, right? So some people, I think, will say folk music. Oh yeah, it's probably fine because it's folk. Well, you got to make sure, you really got to
Right.
is it fine? So my whole purpose now is sacred and folk music. I do sacred music mainly for, honestly, for therapeutic purposes. It's music therapy. It has a really miraculously calming effect, and this is both
It
spiritual
does.
and physical. And so I got really deep into that, studying that. The only problem with that field is music therapy has a lot of new age
Mm,
stuff in it, so you have to really be careful
Yeah.
and pick and choose. And so, but when you look at it from the lens of being a traditional Catholic, it makes it really, you can just see, oh, red flag, okay, we're not going that way. But when you see that there are healing frequencies, there are healing methods of singing, there is an openness in the throat that it has a healing property, and then a closed off pop sounding voice that is not. And you can start to find these little things. And anyway, so that's to make a pretty long story short-ish. But so I am classically trained, but I'm also very much self-taught. And I just record on my own. All of my recording equipment is, I use a laptop, I use the free software Audacity, and I use a Yeti mic that was $100.
nice. That's
I
I love to hear it. I'm not the only one jury rigging stuff, right?
know, yeah, and you can do a lot with that. You
Yeah.
don't have to have a $100,000 recording studio.
No.
And you know what? Some of the people that go to those produce garbage music, and so it's it doesn't.
So
Yeah.
true.
So I do my best with what I have, and God has really blessed me with the materials. And my dad is a huge part of it. He was always so supportive of music and for me, and he would buy any instrument I wanted to learn. And without that, I wouldn't be where I am. He
Awesome.
always said, "I'll pay for lessons and an instrument." And man, I took advantage of that. Like
Awesome.
crazy. I have like 7. But so yeah, that's more or less my background in music.
No, it's fascinating, and it's really interesting when you talk about Gregorian stuff because I felt the same. It is healing. I mean, people wonder like why you hear these stories of the monks back in the day, and they lived till they're 120. It's like, okay, why? Well, they had a regular schedule. They ate well. They worked hard, and they sang 6 times a day. And they sang
Mhm.
Gregorian chant that is absolutely positively healing. It's psychologically healing, and I mean, I dare anyone to really. You got to learn how to do it too. That's true. I mean, I know not well, but I know basically how to sing Gregorian. And if you do, especially if you do it with a Gregorian men's choir, or I suppose women's choir,
Yes.
oh man, it's amazing. It's like wow, you feel like a different person, and it is. It's really a different way of lifting your voice to God, and it is healing. I'm totally I've experienced it myself. It's incredible. I highly recommend everyone to yeah, give it a shot. Learn Gregorian chant and go and
Mhm.
sing it because I can tell you it will change you. It's
Yes.
really incredible. And I think also your point about how important it is to as parents. I mean, I've got a couple of young kids who I hope to be the same as your dad. I mean, if they especially if they show desire and they show compunction and skill, I suppose too. Boy, I gotta give them every advantage, every possibility to do that, right? To be able to sing and play. We have friends from here in Austria. The whole family plays. Everyone plays an instrument. Some of them
Yeah.
play like 10, like you. And they'll come and visit us, and they'll just put on a whole performance for us. It's just like it's incredible. It's just like we'll have
So
lunch. It's like, hey, do you want us to play for you? And they'll just play for an hour. That's
much.
amazing. Can you imagine that as a family? Just like, hey, let's sit around the backyard and play some. And this is not Bavarian. I guess it's Austrian folk music, but it's
Mhm.
awesome. It's just that there's nothing like that. That is talk about a good family atmosphere. It's just there's
Yes.
nothing like music that can really bring the family together. Again, of course, if it's wholesome. But
Yep.
I can't recommend it enough. And before we get going, I really it's already 40 minutes in. I have not played your guys' video yet. It's just incredible. You see how we are. We just get going and we never stop. I want to play. I'm going to play this before we get going too much because I want people to continue to listen to this and to watch this video about the Cristeros.
Yes.
Um, El Martes. Maybe you say it.
El martes me fusilan literally means on Tuesday they shoot me.
I love it.
It's
I love it.
titled gives you everything. It's,
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah.
I
And
love
it's
it.
a
All right.
mariachi traditional ranchera.
I love it. All right, here we go. Let's play a couple. We'll play a couple 10, 20 seconds of it. Oops.
Sure.
El martes me fusilan a las 6 de la mañana por creer en Dios eterno y en la gran Guadalupana. Me encontraron una estampa de Jesús en el sombrero, por eso me sentenciaron, porque yo soy un cristero.
I love it. It's actually kind of a funny thing. Like so we put this. You guys know we put this on part of one of the videos, the indefectible video, and so we listened to that quite a few times. And my kids just love it. So I have a 1-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl, and they
That's
just like the rest of the video they're kind of da 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 da, and then that song comes on and they're just like I just can't get enough of it. They just love it, and it's just
So
it's so good, and it's so as you said, Andrew, it's really it could really be part of a bigger movie type of thing. It's really well shot. I mean, it's beautifully done, and
thank you.
I just love the context too. I mean, we need more of that, right? We need more of that, just that spirit of all right, well, they're gonna shoot me on Tuesday, but it's for a good reason, because I believe in Jesus Christ. I just love that, and so I
Yeah.
guess I mean we've talked a bit kind of how you got here. So I'm just going to ask we're already at 40 minutes, but I'm going to ask, maybe quickly, what is the process of actually shooting that video? How did you actually just put that together?
all on you.
Okay, so after she recorded everything and everything was done, I was okay. Let's initially we tried to go out and shoot, and then we didn't have enough time that night because the sun started
The
going
sun went
down
down
a lot
and-
quicker
yeah.
than we thought it
Mhm.
was going to. So then we rescheduled a shoot. We ended up heading out to it's called Trans Mountain over here in El Paso, and it is one of the most beautiful views. If you ever
Yes.
find yourself in El Paso, or anybody who's watching this, like that's
Yeah.
a beautiful spot to go through because you can see the overcast, you can see a beautiful El Paso, and then just the desert and a lot of Mexico as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we wanted to go over there to film it. So I just brought my DSLR camera, and then we looked at. I guess before we get into the recording part, we actually got the prop for it too.
Right.
So
yeah, the little resin cast revolver. We got it.
Yeah, nice.
All. So
That-
that's perfect. And
yeah.
we got a holster for it at Traeger Supply.
Yeah. So
Sure.
we found that it was just a wall like
like
hanging
a wall hanging. Yeah.
revolver, but it was going to be in the holster. So I'm like, okay, it's going to
Yeah.
look real enough.
Yeah.
So we got that. We got the holster, like you said, at Tractor Supply. We went out to
Mhm.
Trans Mountain, and then we just had a Bluetooth speaker on one of our phones. We
Playing
play it
my recording.
so that way she
I
could
could
be
sing
able
along.
to sing along to it.
Right.
Mhm.
And it was just a matter of capturing some of the, trying to capture some of the most beautiful shots to reflect a beautiful song and a beautiful message.
Mhm.
Just like you said, that kind of stuff, when you read it and you see it, is something that changes within you, and you're
Mhm.
motivated and you're inspired to be like the Catholics of the past, like
Yeah.
the Crusaders, like the Cristeros, like the martyrs, the saints that had such zeal and love for our faith. Like how you said, on Tuesday they shoot me because I worship Jesus Christ.
Mhm.
And to hear that as a Catholic is not something you see very often. That's why if I hunt down these movies that end up being, pretty good. I mean, we know about the Passion of the Christ and certain other movies as well, like Paul Apostle of Christ. When you hear them mention like our love for our Lord Jesus Christ, and it's on a big screen or it's a high production, it really hits different because that's the true God. That is, it's not just like we're watching again like superhero movies where it's like
Yeah.
this is all make believe. Kind of like the new pagan gods that we're watching. Okay, we
Mhm.
see this, we see a superhero do what he has to do, and then they're fighting for some sort of moral code. But this is like the true
Yeah.
moral code of like what we live every day. So when we see music or hear music or watch movies about anything like this, it inspires Catholics. So the whole point was just to capture some really good footage. We know that a lot of these battles happen in a desert-like environment. So we were like, let El Paso, this is the, we might as well use this location while we're still here, because I only have less than a year until I'm out of the military, and we're going to end up going back to the East Coast. So it's like, hey, let's get as much content done that revolves around the desert, like the Our Father in Aramaic.
That worked really
well. El Martes, and we have a few more projects we'll talk about here shortly. But the process was just to capture as best as I could with the amount of cinematography that I've learned in the past, put it towards something good now. Like how you said in the past, you were, you did podcasting that wasn't fulfilling. Now this is fulfilling what you're doing now. The same thing for me was, okay, let's capture this and then put it on screen. After we were done recording that day, we were pretty exhausted, but we were on fire to edit. So we started editing like majority in like one day.
It took a long time.
It did,
a lot of editing. Well, because he had taken so many shots because like 10 different ones on Trans Mountain alone, and then we went to a different location not far from where we live here. When the sun started getting a little lower, we have a view of Mount Cristo Rey, which is beautiful. It's in Sunland Park, New Mexico, a little over the border, but it's got a beautiful cross on the top. It's like a giant statue on the top that's a cross with Jesus on it, but it's not a regular crucifix, right?
Yeah, it's like
it's kind of like a resurrection type, but it's a cross. And whenever the sun starts to go down, you can see a beautiful silhouette of a cross on that mountain. And I said, we've got to have Mount Cristo Rey in it, because obviously it's named Cristeros. And so so we came back here and we did some of those shots with me playing the violin interludes, so that we could go back and forth between Trans Mountain and the Mount Cristo Rey. Array with the sun going down, you can see the cross, and it's really cool. So it was 2 locations and a lot of shots and a lot of editing, because we edited that for hours on end.
We edited it.
I got so tired of the song
because
I recorded it 500 times.
For her, she gets tired of it. I can still listen to it now, and I'll just put it on and be like,
I'm like, oh, not again.
Like I'm just listening to it, and I'm like, this is so beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's just like, again, how you said, for me, it's like recording it. I didn't actually understand the language at all, right?
So I put the lyrics after. So once the video was done.
And she understood bits of it, but while we're recording it, she's like, oh, I think I just said like this, because she knows the lyrics, but she didn't have it memorized.
I didn't have it all memorized in English.
And then
the translation.
So it was a rewarding experience to go through the editing process and having because she ended up subtitles for the lyrics. And then as we're watching it, when we actually put it out, we watched it for like that first time. Those English at first we're like, man, we don't even want to put English lyrics on there. Like, no, we really need to do that. It's kind of like if they made Passion of Christ and they didn't put the subtitles. They didn't put the subtitles. It's beautiful, but you
get it. Yeah, right. I would have understood if you didn't, but I think it's better. For me, it was impactful seeing the translation for sure. And I have to comment too. I mean, you're saying the power of video, and it's really interesting. We just recently did I read from Intro Ebo about Pius XII kind of gave, I think it was a Christmas speech, declaration. I don't know what you call it, but he gave a talk about media. I guess a couple different ones in this blog. And it really talks about that. It's like, hey, look, this media is incredible, and it can do so much. It can bring so many people to God. It can bring beauty, and it can bring stories that no one else can tell, and it can bring knowledge that no one else would ever know. And it can bring, of course, ugliness and horror and terrible things. And I think that's really an important thing to remember, that media itself is certainly not bad. I mean, this medium too, YouTube, okay, YouTube itself maybe, but I mean, the idea of having something that has the ability to share video is an amazing thing, and if we use it for of course the glory of God, and that's a good thing to know. And I think it's a good thing to remember, that not to be so black-pilled. I mean, I think you guys are a good example of that too. Don't be so like, oh, it's all bad, everything's terrible, we're all it's all going to explode and die. And it's like, come on, no. I mean, where's the proof of that? Let's I mean, I've got a couple of young kids. I want to build a good, world and life for them as best as I possibly can. And
Yeah.
if the world ends, the world ends. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. So I mean, who cares, honestly? So let's build the best and most beautiful world. And part of that, as we know, is media. I don't care if people like it or not. That's the truth. It is media.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, let's do the best we can to provide it. So I guess I'd ask you guys then, what's next? I mean, I know we haven't talked about all the videos you have already. I mean, again, the one I love the best is the Crusader song, but I know you've done O Como Como Manual, which unfortunately is about 2 days before it's out of season. So everyone go check that out right now. Go listen to that today and tomorrow and Sunday before it's Christmas. But it's also beautiful. Absolutely recommend. I mean, it's again, it's just nice. It's just nice to have good music. It's just like, oh, that sounds nice. It's beautiful. It's beautifully shot, beautifully sung, and it's a nice thing. So I guess I'd ask you guys then, what's next? You said you have a couple other projects in the works, and I'm excited for it. What's up? What's on the docks?
The Christmas stuff.
Yeah, so we are working on several videos for Christmas. One of them is actually going to be a sermon from Bishop McGuire,
Cool.
and we're going to make it into theatrical with his voice in the background, kind of like the Christian motivational videos I made, but just with sermon.
Right.
And then we are working on, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I recorded a Christmas carol.
Yeah.
I guess I won't say what it is just for
I
the
guess you won't say it. Yeah.
But yes, I recorded it already. It's ready to go, and we intend to go out tonight to film for that one.
Yes.
And then have that one probably premiere on Christmas Eve.
Cool. Okay.
So Christmas Eve, that's the goal. And then we just have a handful of other little musical Christmas things that we're gonna put together. And I think that's it for Christmas. But then you can tell them about the short film.
So after Christmas, after we get done with all that content, there's been a project I've been wanting to work on for a while, and this will be the first short film I've actually made, post my recursion. It's going to be the burning bush of the book of Exodus. So that's going to be a project that we're going to go into pre-production, write the screenplay, which is very difficult. I've been doing this for a while. I've been trying to find out what's the right move when it comes to taking scripture and putting it into a screenplay.
Right.
I'm being very hesitant with that.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I'm
doing
my
do
research.
It right.
Yeah. I want to show it.
Right.
Yeah. I want to show a few priests to get them to look at it and make sure it's sound. And then we're going to go film that, because again, the desert is a good place to film that particular scene with Moses speaking to God through the burning bush. So that's going to be the first short film that's going to be put out by Crusader Filmworks, and it'll be the first short film I've made in like at least 2.5 years. So those are the projects. We have other ones to come after that.
There's a lot more music too coming that I also already have recorded. Now I do have a website with all of my recordings. There's a link to like a Google Drive. You don't have to have Google at all to get them, because you can just click the link. It's a shareable link, and you can download all the audios. So I have a lot of audios on there of secular folk music and sacred music. And so because I've had so much already recorded, we're just gonna knock out a video every now and then, whenever. So after the Christmas season, we'll probably do one of. I made one. I can go ahead and tell them about this one, because Andrew really likes this one. It was I made a folk song out of the poem by Joyce Kilmer, the Catholic poet. Fulton Sheen used to quote him a lot. But he wrote a poem. It's very famous. People might know it, but it's called "Prayer of a Soldier in France," and it's really a beautiful poem. So I set it to music as a folk song. It's already on my website, the audio. But Andrew, I think when we get to the East Coast and we have a lot of woods and like nice scenes for that, we will do a video for that. So that one's coming in the future at some point. But so we have a lot of music videos that we can put together pretty quick if because I'm already done with the recordings. But there's also new recordings I want to make, and like there's some maybe more Mexican rancheras that I would like to record as well while we're here, because I love rancheras. I love singing in Spanish. I love singing in any language really. So we'll do more, but the burning bush and the Christmas stuff is coming. Well, Christmas is coming very soon, and the burning bush is coming as soon as possible.
And then there's there's a bigger projects that we're working on that we actually wanted to talk to you about too, which is potentially making
some documentaries.
Yeah, some really high quality documentaries with
interviews with real live people. not just about the crisis in the church, but
Yes.
that would be a good part, because I really like the idea of, well, we've been talking about this. We really like the idea of having, like, okay, for example, watching Indefectible from you guys. I really love seeing when you interview people on the ground from the time, watching their church change in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
That is really wonderful to hear from the people. It's
Right.
really undeniable that an enemy hath done this, you know? So I really like the idea of having formal interviews like that, and also theatrical things to put into documentaries. And we're talking more short form, not, 2 hour, not 1 hour, but,
Right.
30 minutes, 20
Yeah.
minutes, stuff to get the point across quickly, but really engaging in a way that's very engaging, using everybody we can, really.
Yeah.
Well, as you see, I mean, first of all, someone's got to tell the story, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's I think we all know that. I mean, this stuff is coming to a head. I mean, we see that with Bergoglio, the whole gay blessings and stuff. Every month, it seems it's getting more and more. People are like, okay, wait, this can't be. So
Yeah.
someone's got to tell these things so that people understand, I guess, even where we come from,
Right.
and these people who live through it are going to die. And that's just how it is. I mean, and that's the harsh reality of life, right? That I mean, many of these priests and people are already gone or will be gone soon. I mean, Bishop Dolan, I wish to goodness I had interviewed him, and I literally had one on the docks. Like it was set up and he passed away. Like it was set up like a week or two before, and then that's just how it works, of course. And God rest his soul. And I really regret that. I was like, if I had done it a month earlier, I could have gotten his voice, and he's incredible. I love Bishop Dolan, even though I never got to meet him. And that's
Yep.
exactly as you say. That's what we got to do. I mean, we got to get these stories. We got to get the truth out. The people, what they actually lived through before they're gone. And
Yeah.
they're all going to be gone soon. I mean, Bishop Sanborn. I mean, even Father McKenna. He's young now, but eventually, you breathe in too much fire. You never know what he. Father McKenna, you never know with him. He's going to go out with a bang. I know that for sure with Father McKenna. But Eliza, I wanted to ask too. What is your website again?
Okay, so my website right now it's Old School Music Studio. Unfortunately, I have to do the .weebly.com because I didn't pay for the really huge
I
fee.
hear you.
But
Weebly, how do you spell that?
we can it's weebly.com. We can send you the link too, and that way you'll have it.
Sure.
But yeah, that, and also that website is linked in every description of every music video. So
Okay, yeah.
it'll
Got
say like audio download in the musician's website, click this. So you can always go and see there's a music page, audio page that has every single one of them that I've done.
Okay.
It's free for download, and take it, download it, post it, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. Whatever they want to do with it, it's theirs. I want it to be available. The whole point is to fill the need that is very great, where we need wholesome music that is not something you have to worry about. Is that gonna, is that bad for us to listen to?
Yeah.
I don't want that in my head at all, especially for, my own children in the future. We want to be able to give them a lot of music, a lot of media that's wholesome and pure, and that nobody has to worry about, do I have to edit out, 7 different things, or pause or skip? We don't want to deal with that. We want it to be available, and I also don't want to have it and then have people say, well, do I need to pay for a CD? Do I need to pay to stream it? No, it's all available for free download, and I don't care what you do with it. I'm not freaking out about copyrights. Just take it and use it. It's yours.
And the same is true with the videos that we make.
No monetize, no ads. We don't want that.
One thing that we wanted to make sure is, and we understand why people do it. But we wanted to do the best we could to keep this clean, even of any potential ad that would be a danger to your soul that might appear. Because sometimes
I don't trust you too.
that will happen.
They'll come. Yep.
Yeah. And if people want to download the videos and keep it, just in case for any kind of reason, that's completely permission is given.
Yes, it's open and free for the public. It's
it is, and that's one thing with her when she talks about listening to music. The same thing is true for me with the visual arts. It's like, okay, if I'm gonna watch a movie, there's certain movies that we've even gone through recently that were like mostly good, but there's like little bits and pieces that you got to like either watch out for or explain, and that's fine to have discussions with your family, but we're trying to make that very easy for the parents, very easy
Yeah.
for the families, that they can just put it on. If we, if God willing, He blesses us and we are able to make something much bigger, even to a feature length down the line, if God blesses us with that, it will be something that any Catholic could put on and say
Yes.
it's fine. They could just put it, watch it, and it's completely it's untainted with any
Completely
issues.
clean. Yeah, that's
So,
the goal.
yeah.
Everything just available,
And that-
free,
yeah.
and completely clean, and just trying to fill that void that's
Yeah.
out there.
And like how you said, going back to what you talked about with media and how powerful it can be, we talk about these beautiful cathedrals that attracts people in,
Yes, yes.
and it brings that glory to God. And we're just trying to do the exact same thing
On a small scale.
on a small scale, humbly,
Yeah.
and knowing that we want to make, and we really want to continue doing this until we die,
Yeah.
constantly with the talents that God gave us, giving it back to Him, glorifying Him, and really bringing a sense of somewhat normality to Catholics, where we can watch that channel and it's fine.
Yes.
We can watch this content and we can really enjoy, sit down, and put on this movie, put on this music video, put on that song, and it's fine.
Yeah.
So that's really our goal.
I love it, and I think that's a perfect way to end it, guys. I think that's I really appreciated getting to know you, and I hope and truly wish for your success. I hope everyone who's watching this goes over and subscribes to the YouTube channel. Of course, I'll link it in the show notes.
Thank you.
And guys, share, like, comment, all those things, because everybody knows, or everyone should know, that YouTube is not going to help any of us out. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, Catholic content, let's boost that algorithm. No, it's just not going to happen. So the only way it's going to happen is if you help out, and it really truly is likes, shares, and comments. That really is. Even if you don't love it, which I think you will. I mean, if you listen to that El Martires song and you don't love it, then, well, just unsubscribe to the channel. I don't want you here, okay? No, I'm kidding. But seriously though, if you don't, I mean, go and listen to that, like it, comment, because again, if you do that, you actually help other people see it, and that really is what I know. That's what these guys want. That's what I want. It is the idea that we spread good media in order to give glory to God, but also to bring people to the truth. And I can tell you and I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and stuff. And I can tell you, it's not from my content; it's mostly from my mom's. We had a person. They sent an email to a priest, I think. They said, yeah, we started going to the St. Vicanta's Chapel because of the Catholic Family Podcast. I was like, whoa, and I was kind of like, and I admit it, I was feeling pretty proud, and I was kind of wondering, like, oh, I wonder which video. And they're like, oh, it was a recording that my wife did of the agony in the garden from, I forget which book it was from, but it was during Lent. And she just recorded a simple story of the agony in the garden. And somehow they caught that video. And I guess from that, they must have listened to one of the ones with the priest who talked about St. Vicantism. They from the beauty of this video that was simply a story about the agony in the garden, that caught their interest and their trust. And they said, wow, this is so beautiful. I need to look more. And that's incredible. And that's what it's about, I can tell you. And that's what we're trying to do. And I know you guys as well. So thank you both so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Anything I can do to support you guys in the future, I hope you know that. I'll do it. I hope we can work together in the future as well. Looking forward to it. Everyone, again, go over to them, like, share, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Andrew, Eliza, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully we'll do it again sometime soon. Until then, God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.